Hi, my name is Bree, and I'm the founder of Parity. This is a redlined map of Baltimore. In 1934, the National Housing Act was enacted by the Roosevelt administration during the Great Depression, designed to make housing and home mortgages more affordable in order to stimulate the economy. However, these benefits were only made available to white Americans. The National Housing Act mandated that mortgage bankers determine the racial composition of neighborhoods. Predominantly white neighborhoods were deemed desirable and were given favorable mortgage terms. Neighborhoods that were predominantly Black, however, were to be outlined in red marker on the map, hence the term redlining, and no home loans could be made there, even if a family had the income to support the mortgage. Baltimore was not unique. This practice of redlining was implemented nationwide and further institutionalized economic racism in this country. Redlining in combination with the race-based environmental, educational, food and health, job and employment disinvestment contributed to the deterioration of what were otherwise thriving centers of Black business, thriving centers of Black culture, and the promise of a finally safe space for Black Americans. All of those systemic inequities compounded and resulted in the Baltimore that we are all too familiar with today. The consequences have been long lasting. The home ownership disparity is a racial one. Only 42% of Black households in Baltimore own their homes compared to 60% of white households, despite the fact that Baltimore is a majority minority city. Considering that 66% of household wealth is generated by the equity in one's home, it's no surprise that white household wealth is 10 times that of Black household wealth. And even when factoring in educational attainment, white households with less than a high school degree still hold more wealth than Black households with a college degree. In Baltimore, we're seeing that trend firsthand. The Able Foundation recently released an illuminating report examining racial and wealth trends across Baltimore's neighborhoods. Between 2000 and 2017, the only economic segment of the city's white population that is growing is the upper income population. On the other hand, the only economic segment of the city's Black population that is growing is the low income population. This trend at the two extremes has resulted in an ever-widening disparity. It further cements Baltimore's status as a tale of two cities, a city of the haves and the have-nots. What's more is that the middle income households across the board have been disappearing, and Black households make the majority of that loss. Since 2000, predominantly Black neighborhoods in Baltimore have lost over 45,000 people, or roughly 20% of their total population. Baltimore's middle class, which has been historically Black, has been gutted. There cannot be a healthy functioning economy, nor a healthy functioning neighborhood without a healthy functioning middle class. What's happening in Baltimore is echoing throughout the nation. If we continue along this trajectory, it is forecasted that Black families will hold $0 in household wealth by 2053. In Baltimore, this is already the case for 1 out of every 4 households. I've dedicated the last 10 years of my life to reversing this trend. I'm from New York, and believe it or not, this was New York in the 70s. New York then looks very much like Baltimore does now. However, New York, similar to Washington, D.C., has received significant reinvestment that, while on the one hand has revitalized spaces, on the other hand has come at an immense human cost and collateral in the form of displacement and gentrification. When gentrification began to hit my hometown of the Bronx and Westchester, I became a housing activist, calling for affordable housing and equitable development. I acquired an abandoned building in my neighborhood, and using my own capital, I acted as my own general contractor and oversaw construction in order to create and preserve 3 affordable apartments in my neighborhood. And I'm proud to say that I was able to achieve that goal. At the time, I had been working on Wall Street in a variety of roles, and I realized that there were three key issues with the market. The first is that the real estate industry has underproduced affordable for sale homes for first time home buyers, choosing to focus instead on producing big box rental housing or large luxury homes in suburbia, despite changing demographic demands. The second is that distressed neighborhoods like those in Baltimore contain some of the most intrinsically valuable yet lowest appraised land. And the third is that without proactive measures, these neighborhoods either continue to face disinvestment or are at risk of hypergentrification and displacement of legacy residents. In other words, without an intervention, we will continue to see a widening disparity and the loss of opportunity. And so I set out to create Parity, which is an equitable development company that acquires and rehabilitates abandoned properties by the block to create affordable homeownership opportunities. Parity's unique competitive advantage is that it taps into organic, pre-existing social networks to build a collective effort amongst friend groups to commit to reinvesting in distressed neighborhoods through ownership and equity. This consumer group is also committed to social justice and wants to ensure that existing residents benefit from development. Last October, we did a soft launch introducing our initiative to the public, and the response has been overwhelming. To date, we have 16 motivated individuals who have joined our collective and are in the process of being pre-approved and qualified for a mortgage to buy a Parity home in the neighborhood. We've accomplished this without a dollar spent on marketing. It's been entirely bootstrapped and through word of mouth efforts. Moreover, these folks are incredibly engaged, volunteering their time and energy to building up the initiative. They can see the vision. They see the good bones of the neighborhood, and they see the elders who have been stewards of the spaces and places.
Yeah, as much as safe and within.
Part of that co-creation takes place digitally, where we receive community submissions to the question, what can the restoration of our neighborhoods look like when we have agency over the outcomes? Through all of these initiatives and through our home sales, Parity will begin to reverse the downward trend in Black household wealth. In just 5 years, Parity homeowners will have accumulated about $43,000 in wealth. In 10 years, $63,000 in wealth. And in 30 years, $200,000 in wealth through the equity in their homes. Parity's second distinct value proposition is that we take a whole neighborhood approach to reinvestment. By targeting whole blocks of abandoned properties and introducing engaged and compassionate homeowners, we believe that we can turn around the trajectory of distressed neighborhoods. Parity has built out a robust development team of skilled partners and professionals to assist us in executing on this vision. And as the founder, I've been honored to have been accepted into several local ecosystems that build up Baltimore's leaders and social entrepreneurs to make the city a better place. Because of these groups, I'm better able to build, grow, and scale Parity. And finally, Parity's third unique value proposition is that we are implementing anti-displacement initiatives, including protecting legacy homeowners from rising property taxes, assisting in making much needed repairs and deferred maintenance. And we're working with the Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Services and Fight Blight Be More to assist legacy residents in estate planning, deed disentanglement, and much more. Through all of this, in 5 years, we will have created $28 million in value in the neighborhood by rehabilitating 96 abandoned buildings, creating 90 new homeowners, and introducing legacy residents to our anti-displacement programs and hiring returning citizens to do trade jobs. To accomplish this, we are raising various types of capital. First, we're raising $1.5 million in equity to finance the acquisition of abandoned properties in our catchment area. We're also looking for a line of credit to finance the construction of the assets. Once the homes are rehabilitated and sold, we will replenish the equity pools and pay down our construction line and then distribute a return to our investors and pay ourselves a salary. Looked at from a per unit basis, our total cost per property to rehabilitate a building is about $300,000, which consists of acquisition costs, closing costs, construction costs, and the cost of capital. The project costs are covered by the sales price, which we're starting at $180,000, and we consider that to be an attainable entry-level home price. We're looking to fill the remaining gap with city and state subsidy, historical tax credits, and philanthropic grants. Although Parity is in advanced due diligence talks with a private institutional investor for the $1.5 million in equity, these funds will likely not be distributed until October. And so we're seeking $400,000 in patient capital from the Innovation Works Network to participate in the Baltimore City tax sale occurring in July. Within our catchment area, there are 75 liens being sold at the tax sale. We believe that 45 of these liens are worth strategically pursuing, and they would take about $181,000 to acquire. The rest of the patient capital would go towards paying myself a salary, hiring our first employee, which would be our engagement officer, and making other opportunistic acquisitions as they arise. The second part of our capital stack includes debt, for which we are seeking a rotating credit facility, either from a CDFI or from a foundation as a PRI, and we're also looking for our foundation to possibly act as a guarantor or first loss reserve on a loan. And finally, and perhaps our greatest need, in order for this project to pencil, we will need grant funding to fill the remaining $30,000 gap between the cost of rehabilitation and the sale price for the first 20 homeowners of our project. Thank you for your interest in Parity. I'm excited for the start of a new reality for our neighborhoods, and we can achieve this with your help.